Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of a Passover sermon with Rabbi Adam Kligfeld. Despite it all, choose life.
I want to begin with a trigger warning, and this is not shticky. At some point in my Dvar Torah, I'm going to be mentioning suicide. And I'm going to be approaching it from a philosophical perspective. But that's a word that could bring up, understandably, some enormously painful feelings, particularly if you have confronted it in your family. It's a phenomenon that can destroy a family and can leave wounds that are not healed from. And I wanted to let you know in advance that it's going to be mentioned in this Dvar Torah, so it's not a surprise. About 10 or 15 years ago, there was a fascinating movie called Arrival with Amy Adams. Raise your hand if you've seen it. Okay. For everyone else, spoiler alert. It seems like it's a sci-fi movie, but it's really not. It's a very earthy movie. It's really a movie about the human condition. The setup is that you have this scientist played by Amy Adams who's a linguist, and there has been a visitation from clearly another planet of other sentient beings. There's also a setup that she is mourning, Amy Adams, the death of her young child. And without getting too much into it, but it does spoil it, sorry, the resolution as she interacts with these aliens who have a different understanding of the experience of time and even the order of time than human beings do, is that what we saw, which was her memory of mourning a child who died, is actually a prophecy. And it's going to happen in the future. And this fundamental philosophical question of the movie, which is answered powerfully, courageously in the positive, is, if you knew that your child, to which you have not yet given birth, was going to die young, would you still choose to be a parent to her? And her answer is yes. The stakes less high if she knew that the person that she starts having a relationship with, the character played by actor Jeremy Renner, is eventually going to leave her over her decision to still have a child, even though she knew the child was going to die and not tell him. Would she still have chosen to start the relationship with him, knowing it was going to be short and painful? Her answer was yes. She still would choose a pathway that not maybe, but is certainly paved, not only pain, but with tragedy and trauma. I think the message of the movie is that a little joy is better than no joy. And if we didn't believe that on some level, why would we ever get a pet? Why would we ever subject a child to loving a dog or loving a cat? I don't know why anyone would love a cat, but... We wouldn't do such a cruel thing if we didn't lean into the idea that there's a certain cruelty of life's experiences that we're going to have to endure, and that's not only the price of joy, it's the price of life. One of the most horrific and beautiful eulogies I ever read, was not present for it, was when Rabbi Yitz Greenberg, one of the great luminaries of Jewish thought in the last 100 years, may he live and be well, mourned his son JJ, who was killed in a bicycle accident in Jerusalem. And JJ was known to be, in addition to his beloved son, an extraordinary young man who was on the pathway to do incredible things for the Jewish people, for the world. And what he said, this is almost verbatim in his son's funeral, was, I bless you with having children born to you in the future, that even if you knew you'd only have them for 37 years. You would make the decision to have them over and over again. And on some level, his comments were an homage and a praise of the type of person J.J. was. But it also exemplified a certain approach to living, a sober, real, not overly romantic approach to what it means to choose to be alive, knowing how much travail will be placed in front of you. I think about that when I think of what, to me, is the most satisfying explanation I've ever come across and kind of evolved in my own thinking to one of the most complicated and hard to assimilate sections of the Torah. We're in the book of Vayikra now in the regular cycle, and a lot of that material is sometimes hard to get close to, even though it's all about getting close to God with a korban. And within that difficult section is an uber difficult section that begins with Parshat Tazria. As we get into skin oozing, and we get into blood taboos, and we get into how our ancient relatives understood the relationship between the body and the spirit. And Parshat Tazria begins with some hard material that tells us that when a woman gives birth, she enters into a period of time in which she is tme'ah, a word which, if you've heard me teach this material before, you know that I don't know any other way to translate it other than impure, but impure is not the right word, because impure is a value statement, and I'm not sure that the tamei tahor trajectory is good or bad. It more has to do with life ebbing versus like life flowing. And when life was flowing, you were tahor. When life was ebbing, particularly when life was ebbing from parts of your body that are supposed to be generating life, that was the height of tum'ah. But the person who just gave birth enters into a period of tum'ah. And this is also very hard for moderns and modern egalitarian Jews, that the period of tum'ah was twice as long if she gave birth to a girl versus a boy, which on its surface seems really misogynistic, as if to suggest that she enters into a negative place, and a doubly negative place because she brought a girl into the world. I can't believe that's really what the ancients believed. My understanding of the best way to make sense of the tum'ah is a very realistic and sober understanding of what it means to bring life into the world. The Torah understood that she had just given birth, boy or girl, to a child who was going to die and who's going to suffer. And that's tum'ah. When we confront our or others' mortality, that is the essence of tum'ah. And when she gives birth to a girl, she not only has given birth to someone who will live, suffer, cry, and die, but she gives birth to someone who herself is likely to give birth to someone, or many people, who's going to live, suffer, and die. In other words, the Torah is preparing us at the moment of birth for that which we don't always say when we say to expecting parents, oh, you must be so happy, it's all going to be wonderful. It's not all going to be wonderful. And the Torah basically said, open your eyes and open your hearts to how endlessly painful and complicated this thing we call life is. Do you still want to do it? It's unromantic and very real. And I think about that when I think of a commentary by the Shibbolei Haleket, which is the 13th century German commentary on the liturgy, on the section of the Haggadah, which we did last night. We'll do again tonight. I don't know why. The section Vehi Sha'amda, that promise that has stood for us from age old until now, that in every generation, Omdim Aleinu L'chalotenu, they rise up to destroy us. And the Shibbolei Haleket says, why is it the case that in this paragraph that talks about God's protection of us, we have to remember and remind ourselves that we're never going to evade, not any generation is going to evade a Jewish experience free from needing that protection of God. That is so heavy. And he connects it back to Brit Bein Habtarim, that section in Parshat Lech Lecha when Abraham is first brought into the covenant, And if you remember, in that weird ritual with the bird split in half and the fire coming between, that is the first time we as readers of the Torah are foretold that we are going to be enslaved by a foreign nation, and it's going to be miserable. And yes, eventually, Dan Anochi, I, God, am going to come and judge them and redeem you. But I want you to know, Abraham, if you accept this covenant with me, your ancestors are going to be slaves. They're going to suffer. They're going to be killed. They're going to cry. And in future centuries, we're going to have symbols on our plate on Pesach night to remind them of the tears. Do you want to be in this relationship with me? You don't have to. Shibolei Halekha says that's what the V'hisha Amda is. The choice by Abraham and the choice by every Jew since to say, yes, even though I cannot guarantee when your redemption will come, God, and even though the fact that I will suffer because I'm a part of this people, I'm still in. How can you not have awe for anyone, particularly in this generation, in this year, who chooses to come close to Judaism rather than to keep it at a distance? This is the Jewish condition. And this is the human condition as well. And that brings me to that which I began with the trigger warning. William Styron, the author who is most well known for writing Sophie's Choice, wrote a very painful and raw monograph called Darkness Visible, in which he describes his own terrible descent into a depression that he never thought would lift. If anyone in this room has been sad but not clinically depressed, you have no idea what it means to be clinically depressed. And if you've been clinically depressed but did not spend years contemplating every minute of your consciousness whether or not it was worth staying alive versus ending your life, then you can't fully understand what William Styron went through, although if you read his book, you get a window into it. And what he draws from it after having eventually, after horrific experiences, removed himself from the depth of the pit, he concludes, and this is a very radical idea, but I'm moved by it, that suicide is the primary human question. Because we are the only species who can contemplate it, because we're the only species who know that we're going to die anyway, so it's just a question of when, and therefore the only species who know that every day we choose not to end our lives is a choice to live temporarily with pain until our lives end anyway. To not commit suicide, he says, is a choice for a life that will be hard for all of us. Every day is a chosen triumph. And every day is a recognition of what it is we're going to be confronting. Now, to submit to it, some might say is nihilistic, or if you want to have the most compassionate and loving response, it's someone at the very edge of what they can tolerate in the realm of despair. And some people reach that edge. But to consider it, it's fundamentally human. And if you search yourself honestly, you can probably think of moments where the question arose. And it's not because you have a life worse than someone else. It's because you have a life. And you know exactly what that life actually puts in front of you. We're on the first day of Pesach. We know why today's a holiday. We know it in general, and we reminded ourselves last night because our people were finally free from slavery. About 6 days from now, we're going to have not just the end of Pesach, but a Yontif, Mikra Kodesh Yelachem, another named holiday. It's not clear why that's a holiday. It's not parallel to Sukkot. Remember, Sukkot does not end with the Yontif. Sukkot ends, and then a new Yontif begins called Shmini Atzeret. And we can ask a question as to why that Yontif is there. But it's not that because it's a 7-day holiday, you begin with the Yontif and you end with the Yontif. Only Pesach. We all know, because we'll read the Torah this way on the 7th day of Pesach, that we link the Shvi'i Shel Pesach with the experience of their not only being out of Egypt, but having Pharaoh be gone behind them and the waters of the sea having closed upon the Egyptians. But it is worth asking the question, what is so holiday worthy about the seventh day after leaving Egypt? Yes, Pharaoh's behind them, but they are nowhere. Their travels and their travails are just beginning. They haven't met Amalek yet. The Amorites have not tried to destroy them on the way. Og and Bashan have not tried to kill them. They haven't almost killed the marriage they began in Egypt with the golden calf. It is not going to be very good in the days, weeks, and months and years after that moment. Why the holiday? Perhaps it's a way of saying that God brought us out of Egypt, not into a fantasy land, but into a very real human reality. Existence is not a rose garden. We celebrate the completion of one hurdle really just to get ready for the next one. I want to submit to you that the phrase v'chai bahem, and live by them, which is used in halachic terminology from the verse in Vayikra to explain why it is that for nearly every mitzvah in the canon, you're supposed to violate it rather than surrender your life. There are few that are not in that category, and the answer is why? V'chai bahem. I'm giving you these mitzvot to chai bahem, to live by them, v'lo yamut bahem, and not to die by them. That's the halachic usage of that phrase. But I want to suggest a philosophical usage of that phrase, which is that it's the underpinning of all of this reality, that we live bahem. We live amongst all of these pains and these sorrows, and that we choose life again and again and again, knowing it's going to be hard, knowing it's going to be filled with pain. Because to do so is an act of courage, an act of gratitude to our Creator for putting us here, even knowing what it is we're going to confront. And that is indeed worthy of a celebration, and worthy of a holiday, and worthy of a ritual, to choose life again and again.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, go to www.tbala.org.